Alright, we're going live. We are going to be talking about the Cowboy Cup. We'll have a couple people joining. Let me just get this set up. Bear with me for a couple of minutes, everybody, while we get everybody into the chat. So we're just, I'm just waiting for a couple of people. Give me a second. All right. We will be talking about the Cowboy Cup, kind of what happened, waiting on Sank Angel to come on. All right, let's see here. No, I didn't even have any entries, man. I'm just using my platform as a for the rest of the community. I didn't have any entries in the cup, but I saw what happened, and you know, it was uncalled for. So, but we supposed to have Dr. Pepper Hernandez coming on here, along with a couple other people. Yeah, send a request, Aaron. Like I said, we're waiting to get started. Gonna have a couple people. Let's see. I think you just, I'm not sure, actually, how you join. Let's see. Okay, let's see here. Accept. All right. Hey, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. I
All
don't know
right.
if internet is coming in very well right now, but
All right. So, we're just gonna kind of go talk about what happened. There's some other people. I think Aaron's gonna see if he can join. Maybe
so
Jackalope Arms.
at the bottom, if they push the plus and the request, that's how I got on with you just now.
Okay, perfect. So that's how you do it, Aaron. If you want to hop on there, we can talk about kind of what happened and what transpired, during the award ceremony. So, um, let's see. He's got to update his thing. Okay, so, for all the people that have asked, kind of what happened. Um, first of all, I wanted to say that I didn't have any entries in the cup, and but I felt the disrespect at during the event, uh, along with the farmers, and I stand up for the farmers, and I try to be a voice for them out here. I help with with education, and I help with letting people know what's going on with the laws and stuff like that, and whatever. And so during the event, they stopped the award ceremony, and somebody from the Ganjier group went up there and essentially said that they disqualified all of the sun-grown and greenhouse categories for mold. They said they all failed for mold, which, if you take it back a second, all of these submissions, all of these farmers, they all have to submit COAs to give product before they submit. So they essentially they were on stage, and it turned into this thing where they were saying, hey, look, you guys, Wendy went up there and said, you guys in Oklahoma don't know how to grow outdoor greenhouse weed, and I'm trying to break this easy to you guys, but everything was contaminated with mold. If anybody has an issue with this, you guys can come see us and seek our services. We're going to be in the back. It felt like a really badly done commercial for the Ganjier program, right? And they proceeded to do the disqualify every single person, with the exception of the farm that sponsored and had paid for a booth. So it was kind of a double-edged sword on that, where they said, hey, all of these things failed, which nobody knows why. Nobody knows why the judges would fail all of greenhouse submissions, all of the outdoor submissions from every single farm, when they had clean submissions, and they're saying, oh, they can visually see this. One of the issues is we have these testing protocols, which are pretty stringent. We test for bacteria, we test for mold. I don't think they even do that in California. And we do terpenes, mycotoxins, etc. And so it was for them to go on stage and to just announce there live that they were all disqualified, and then give out an award to the one farm that sponsored the event. I felt like that was a slap in the face to everybody who had submit samples, right? And then the way that they approached it, as far as saying, hey, you guys don't know how to grow weed, come talk to us, we have photos and this and that of everything. It was just like a slap in the face to so many hardworking individuals that put their time and energy into this, and so a lot of people reached out. A lot of these people that work in Oklahoma are saying, hey, this is bullshit. And it's not like it was one lab that tested all samples and failed them. We're talking about multiple labs. We're talking about multiple farms, and then the question is, it's not just the mold issue. It's just the way that they approached it. They brought it on stage and said, basically, hey, you guys don't know what you're doing, and then used fear tactics, saying, hey, your guys' products are going to, kill people, essentially.
Hey, so I'd like to hop in and show something. I'm sitting here on my computer with some entries. I've got a bag of Mac and Jack that my farm entered, and we don't have any association to you guys. We're out in the Panhandle, High Prairie. And so this is the exact same batch that we submitted. And I got curious. Let's see. Just some random buds. We'll put them under the microscope. These other ones out. And let's go a step further. I'm going to break it open and get on the inside.
Yeah, and we know that, yes, if you have compromised immune system, these things can be dangerous, right? If you have contaminated product. And if that was the issue and these things were truly contaminated, well, then that would, which it should have been addressed differently. But the issue is that nobody knows why this has happened, right? Because the fact is that all of the COEs did come back clean, and all from different farms, all from different labs. So either every single lab and every single farm is wrong, or the Ganjier program is.
Every single bit of evidence to me, like if this were a court case, would point to a mishandling of the samples by the Cowboy Cup program in some way, whether it's the judges themselves, or whether it was handed to the judges in this way, or whether it didn't even happen. They didn't even fucking know about it until they, you know, started announcing I really don't know what happened behind the scenes, and that's what I'm really curious about. Like, when did they find out? Why did they not tell folks beforehand? And if it was right before they announced the winners, why did they go about it the way they did? I mean, there's so many wrongdoings and questions. And let's face it, at the end of the day, none of these samples, like a lot of these growers are well-respected farmers that come from Humboldt. They know how to dry cure their shit. They're not going to have mold. They're certainly not going to turn in a sample with mold in it, and certainly not a whole group of them. So all of these things would say, like, there's no fucking way. There's no way.
Yeah, and like I said, it's just statistically, it doesn't make sense that every single lab would give them a passing COA, and then the experts say they fail. Like, we're talking about multiple, yeah, and it could be bad storage. So again, the whole thing was just done wrong, right? Regardless of if there was mold, yeah, there is obviously dangers associated with that, especially if you have compromised immune systems. But that's why we have testing in the first place. That's right. Why it's an absolute, and that's why we have requirements, and a lot of places don't even have. Like we're at, I think 10,000 CFU, which is, I think one of the most stringent, tests to pass when it comes to those expectations.
Along with one CFU of Aspergillus flavinis, of 4 other sorts of mycotoxins, with 1 colony-forming amount. That's all that's required to fail. Mold and yeast is 10,000. But we've got 6 more on the panel. That's 1 single colonizing form. Not even 1 spore can be found, and past those in Oklahoma.
And so how are you able, and the thing is too, in the field using a microscope, how can you identify and specifically say that, hey, this is powdering mildew, or this is botrytis, or this is going to have some type of toxic effect on the end user? I mean, that is the point of the lab, to be able to definitively say that, because when we're talking about I mean, there's spores in the air that we breathe.
Yeah, all the time. Not to interrupt. But yeah, like, how are they? That's a good question, because usually you have to put spores and things like this, under a very specific, battery of tests. Like, even if you're using microscopy, I came in a little bit later, but you were telling me, Brandon, earlier that as far as we know, there was just observational microscopes and loops. Is that it?
You had magnifying glasses that hook up to their screens so they can look at the trichomes and everything like that.
Mm-hmm. But like, they weren't putting anything under like oil suspension or nothing like that. They weren't plating anything, and they weren't putting, they weren't what's the word looking for? Not plating, but
testing for
they were doing like a slide, mount or anything like that. No, nothing super specific. It takes a lot of that. Not that I know of either. There's a lot of.
This was claimed
to be a technical thing.
A visual inspection, strictly a visual inspection.
Like, practically with the naked eye, right?
They didn't even clarify if it was with a jeweler's loupe, but I presume like that it was.
Yeah, there's no, and nobody got evidence. And no one was like, oh, see, here's the powdery mildew spore. Here's the thing that we saw that was a problem, right? Nobody said that. Nobody showed anyone any of that.
You have to see photos. We've yet to see photos. I mean, I didn't have an entry, and neither did Brandon. I think a lot of folks that are kind of backing these people didn't have an entry, but I was an outdoor grower for 10 years in California, and I know that if I get my dry weed a little too wet or do something wrong with it, something's gonna you're gonna get mold on it, and it's usually that white hyphae. You can see it physically, and if these samples had this mold on it, question becomes, was the contamination negligible, Did somebody do it on purpose? What's going on?
One thing in my presentations, I
Bad
know.
handling, you know, that's the thing too, because to strictly say that, hey, every single sample that was submitted was bad, and you have to, because it's not just it's the lab too. We're talking about two different entities, and that means the farm was incorrect and the lab was incorrect, right?
Yeah.
That's what we're looking at, and it doesn't add up.
Yeah. And in our case with High Prairie Farms, we had two different labs. We were working with analytics for a long time. Also, these different harvests, that out of these 3 entries, we run 2 light assist greenhouses. They're fully automated, so our cycles are constant. We don't go with the sun. We just use the sun when it's out. So we had a harvest that we took down in August, and a harvest that was early September. Orange cheese and Mac and Jack came from the August harvest. Bruce Leroy OG came from early September. And those were our entries that were kicked out.
See, I don't know if I can hop out. I can't bring any more people in at the moment, but I was going to bring.
I can hop out. I've said my piece, but look, I'm just going to try and facilitate. I think before I leave, Brandon and a couple of the other guys and girls in the group would like to do is facilitate an event that we can kind of throw together as the growers, as the patients themselves, and bring everybody together in a better setting that isn't controlled by money. And so watch out for a lot of that. I'm going to crush these guys with some memes. I'm going to keep them coming until we get some answers, boys. So see y'all later.
Appreciate you, dude.
Yeah, like, and the other thing is the point that was brought up earlier that I thought was a really good one, which is like, you know, what do we know about the time between the samples that were taken and then, you know, being processed? Because like you, Brandon, and also Aaron, both of you know from many times we've spoken, like some of these fungi, like they're all, I mean, most of them, they're all out in the air. You know, we breathe them in all the time, daily, hourly. And also on top of that, like the point between spore landing on a surface and hopefully a good host for it, and then germinating, becoming a little sporling, and then having the fuzzy mycelium everyone's familiar with, like for example, powdery mildew. That's like a multi-day process. It doesn't happen overnight, you know, and most of that is invisible to the naked eye. So, you know, and like you need to be really knowing what you're looking for, and it's I'm a little bit incredulous because, you know, to look for that, I'd be very interested to see what the process was. Apparently, it's a trademark process or something like that, some sort of systematic. I was looking on the website, there was a protocol, but I wasn't able to find any information on the protocol itself. So I don't know.
What were your thoughts, Dr. Pepper?
I'm just trying to hold back the tears. I think it's so disheartening what happened. Whether the people on stage meant for it to come across that way, which I've spoken to them and they didn't mean for it to come across that way. I don't have the footage. I'd love to see the footage. But either way, I think just a common courtesy would have been to reach out to the farmers, let them know that they were disqualified, not to show up and give them a lecture, embarrass them in front of their peers in the whole state of Oklahoma and now everywhere else. It's just disheartening. And the fact on top of that is, if there's cross-contamination, if there's something else going on here, now we're talking about ruining farmers' livelihood, their families, their relationships, their farms, their integrity, their name. It's much bigger than just a small thing. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. And anyone who knows me knows I stand behind organic, outdoor, light assist farmers, like all day long, every day. Like that's my jam. And I know how hard it is to get to where you are. And then just to have something like this happen and not even to be acknowledged or addressed. is the big issue here.
If there was such visible mold, how come those displays were pretty looking, you know? And why go through all that, put our names on it? You know, it's our names were on it, our strains were on it. You know, every store that purchases from all these farms probably went there and saw it. We had a lot of dispensaries that we've worked with come by, talk to us about our entries, and then we're there in the crowd when all that happened.
I am so sorry to you. I really am. I mean, I'm just a speaker there, and I have been for the last 2 years, but it's
When
just,
was it known? Sorry, don't mean to interrupt.
no, it's okay. It's just disheartening to hear what happened. And so I'm sorry to your farm.
No.
Yeah, I think that it's the way that everything was handled was really, really inappropriate, regardless of if there was contamination. But again, the whole fact of the matter really is that it's multiple farms, multiple labs, and then the people in charge or the people that disqualified them are saying, hey, no, it's a problem across the boards. It's your guys' labs, 100%. It's your guys' farmers, and it's just like.
It seems bold.
It doesn't add up. It doesn't add up to me, you know. And I've been doing. I'm just as educated as any of the people on the panel. I do consulting for a living. I'm out here helping these people, and so I understand where they're coming from. I understand how this can set back the people who are like, oh hey, you know, now the whole everybody who's in that crowd is going, oh, nobody out here can grow outdoor greenhouse. It's all contaminated, and that hurts their businesses. And then and then it starts, you know, it causes division. It just causes so much problems for these farmers, and it's like this is their livelihood.
I did want to share this piece, that the thing that's not being addressed here is that there were mold contaminations supposedly across the board, indoor, outdoor, light assist. But instead of mentioning all that prior to the award ceremony, it was mentioned after the indoor was given. And it was just directed to the outdoor and light assist, which was a grouping of like 20 farmers. There's too many pieces here that are just uncomfortable for me. And someone asked if I, you know, as a physician would suggest mold. Of course not. That's not the issue. So get a little past that and get on to what we're talking about, because there's so much more here.
I'm just reading some of the chat messages.
Yeah, so we had a booth there this year. We were close to the Bix tent, and we had Greg. A lot of guys come by and be like, yo, we're excited for the awards, you know, thanks for the entries, thanks for all that. A little heads up. We've done so many of their events throughout the year. Yeah, we had, like I said, we had stores, lots of locations that were there because we did well last year and they wanted to join in and help promote. And then we're all just standing there like, whoa, they're talking about us? They're talking about, I know for sure my calyxes aren't brown. I know we didn't harvest it too long, or harvest it too late. That couldn't be it. Who are they talking about? And then they just move on. And I'm like, oh, that really happened. Let's take our pictures and get out of here. It's super.
And it just, you know, it affects because, again, people reach out to me because I'm out here in Oklahoma and I have, you know, and they know that I'm willing to be a voice for the people who have been injured by this. And it's like when people, like you said, if you have people that are customers in the audience that now are reconsidering doing business with you, that takes away, that's your livelihood that is being affected by somebody's gross inconsideration for
Yeah, and not to mention
it.
maybe possibly there was something going on because everybody had the same white fuzzy mold, I guess, or everybody harvested too late. Everybody harvested too late. Everybody's cultivar was harvested too late. Our 60-day strains, our 80-day strains, all of that was too late. But that was the only general response given. And, now we're still waiting on the pictures. I've messaged Greg and the rest of the people. They've replied, but none of that 40x microscope photo evidence.
And also, I'm just curious, again, just to be sure. So, like, they just said mold, or were they very specific? Or I'm curious what the actual claim was.
They didn't. They just said that everything had failed for mold contamination
I see.
from a visual inspection. They said they inspected everything. It was again. They said she went out there and said nobody here knows how to do this right, and it's like that's not true. Like it just
That's
I don't know.
pretty.
They
That's a bold
had
statement.
advertisement
That's
and
a
the
pretty
whole
bold
thing
statement.
about only like sun grown, having certain terpenes, and there was just a lot of misinformation that was being loosely thrown around out there. The whole thing just didn't make sense to me. I was taken aback by the whole situation because it just didn't make sense. It didn't make sense from a business perspective. It didn't make sense from a science perspective when you're looking at these things. Again, COAs in place, and then someone saying, "Hey, I clearly identify what this contaminant might be through a visual," which is like we've already looked at it just doesn't make sense. So me trying to wrap my head around it isn't going to do anything. Again, farmers were hurt by the actions of and nobody's gotten a real explanation on anything.
I just have a quick thing, Brandon. If you will repeat what actually happened and who did it, because there's a lot of people in the comments asking if it was me, and I was absolutely no part of that. That was not me. That was not my school. My name.
The Daniel, who's the
Yeah.
founder of the Cups, stopped the award ceremony mid ceremony right after the concentrate categories were done, and had Wendy, who's Sonabis, on Instagram go up there and give a speech about how the Gangier program disqualified everybody for mold, and she said some things that were really hurtful to the people that were like in there that had entries in there. The people who have worked really hard, they basically told them that they didn't know how to cultivate, they didn't know when to harvest time were. There's I'm bringing in Jackalope Farms because she was there too. I mean, it's just there was scare tactics that were being used to like discredit the farmers and stuff. It was just in really poor taste. The whole thing was.
Hey. Yeah, hi, I'm Kimmy from Jackalope Farms. Is this working?
Yes.
It is working.
Okay. Hey, yeah, and I did an entry, and I have video of my exact thing that I entered the day I entered it, and I have been growing for like 15 years. And I know what mold looks like, and I know what scoping, and you look for the hyphae. And of course, I'm like so adamant about looking at all of this stuff. So I haven't gotten a response from Daniel or anybody except, whoops, we're sorry we said that at the ceremony. But I haven't gotten pictures. And, that's just, I was just tearing through my bags just now, the bags that I took these samples out of, and I, scoping everything like to a T, tearing these nugs apart, and I just haven't found what they're talking about. So it's super unfortunate. I would never put moldy product on the shelf, I use OKCTL Labs, which is a very fucking strict lab. Like, they've been around for a really long time, so anything that passes through them, I think, would obviously be safe. So I'm just curious about, there's been no chain of custody. Like, I don't know what happened to the samples after I gave it to them.
Yeah. Proper handling procedures are really important for these types of competitions as well. And again, if I don't care if Patrick wants to come on, I don't know if we should let him or not. Yeah, you want to let him in?
Whoever you want next, switch me out.
Okay.
I'll be here.
I can let him in, but somebody else has to exit. And he also has to request, which he presses that little plus button with the camera right there. Like I said, as soon as he requests to go in, I have no problems letting him in. Like I said, I'm open for conversations because nobody's had any, clear line of communication with either the people from Ganjier or from the Cowboy Cup. So I'm the one that facilitated this so that the way there could be an open line of communication.
Yeah. Also, if someone else wants to jump on, I can jump off.
I will wait for him to request. In the meantime, I think Moondog's going to jump on. Josh.
Well, hello, guys.
How are you?
Good, good. Enjoying this very thoroughly.
Yeah, if you just send a request, you just press that. Okay, somebody has to hop off real quick. So if you want to send a request, you just hit the camera button with the plus sign right there.
Sometimes in the comments, it'll say you can request too, if that's easier.
Hey, we've talked about the samples and the mold and talked about all these different things. The biggest thing I think that we're thinking about, even like the guy at Prairie Hills, he's already losing accounts over this, and just the aftermath of them going on stage and just handled so wrong. Not even just there, but even those teams going back within their teams and having that, kind of, did we do wrong? Did they do wrong? Who's wrong? Here. Is kind of my biggest concern. And not only that, but Daniel and those guys at the Cowboy Cup, I've entered multiple years. And this year, them being like, hey, the COAs that you guys report in with are what we're going to use for, validity into the contest. And us all going above and beyond to make sure that quality control is in order and everything is like done to a certain standard, only to have them kind of last second bring in this sponsor, the Ganjier group, and have them go through only the outdoor and the light assist stuff. We haven't heard anything about any of the indoor entries. None of the indoor entries or the farms got, put on blast. It was right before the sun-grown category. So I felt like that was truly distasteful because I looked through those, the entries. I looked through all the entries, and I saw many of indoor flower entries that, from your eye, you could see issues and see problems, And so for us having done our due diligence and done everything we can, we did everything that we could. We did quality control. We got COAs. We submitted. And then we were the only ones called out of over 160 plus entries. Was kind of disheartening. I mean, my heart is still continually broke.
We're already struggling with sun-grown anyway in Oklahoma.
We are already struggling with sun-grown and or greenhouse products having a bad name, and this just kind of puts it in concrete as far as everybody in the state going, we don't want to work with any of these guys in any way, shape, or form, you know? And that's what's disheartening. Because I have a lot of team members that work really hard trying to master and get better at this craft every season after season after season. And it was just in super poor taste. And the slander on the back end of it is just, it's unimaginable, you know? So it's really hard for me, yeah, to look at my peers. I even had peers that night that were just like, what in the world? You know, what's going on here? And we did everything that was required of us. So,
Yeah, and you even told me about it, how it even caused internal conflict within, the farm itself with, people who don't understand the cannabis side versus people that are there doing the growing and stuff too as well,
yeah,
like
absolutely.
investors and cultivation and things like that.
Yes, it definitely has been a thing the last 72 hours or 48 hours, you know? Uh, I want to know at the end of the day. I mean, I get it. Daniel's like, hey, you guys get free entries into next year. Okay. And you should work hard for the next 12 months and trust that we're going to do what we say we're going to do. And your entries are going to be not, I mean, this is the third year. So this isn't the first time this has happened. 2 years ago, they canceled all of the sun-grown category and told everybody just to take the money they had spent on the entries and the money they spent on COAs and just, you know, take your ball and go home. We'll see you next year. Last year, I wasn't a part of any of the entries, but I heard that there was some conflict with those same categories, only to come in the third year and have the Cowboy Cup tell our team that we were going to be, all we had to do is submit our samples and give them COAs. And then we get to the contest only to hear that there's a third party that stepped in. And that third party is going to dictate whether or not our COAs are validified or we're, kicked out of the competition. That was kind of like oh man, okay, so what's going on here? And then on top of all that, for me personally, to find out from another group that in California on the West Coast, that they're not held to the same standards as what we are here in Oklahoma is really just like, okay, so this group who's not held to the same standards as what we are is coming in
The
telling
group
us that we're
isn't from
doing a bad job.
California. The group's not from California. You're all the graduates from all around the world. First off, but we are
Okay.
held to a higher standard in California, as well as everybody across the board should be held in a higher standard. I'm Soil King Patrick. First, I agree with everything that's being said here. I'm not here to come argumentative. First off, the way it was presented, I opted out. I didn't do the judging, right? I'm a council member of the program. So with that, I came in there Friday night. I looked at photos of bud rot. I looked at photos of clear mold. I looked at contaminants on products, right? And I seen it with my own eyes, and I was upset because I knew the outfall was unjust in a lot of ways, especially the way it was handled. And you guys should have been notified, and it should have been a conversation, right? I agree with all of that. Like, smashing farmers for doing their craft on a craft level. The product was fucking excellent. There was some There were some great cultivars in there. But going back to what I visually seen in myself, I took I think Ricky Williams was one of the. I looked in his kit and I went through all his samples. The very first one I opened hit me with mold so bad it was horrible. Then I smelled some other ones that were great. Visual, I could see some. Visual, a lot of it I couldn't see it. I just went through one of the sample packs.
You just said that you didn't judge.
I didn't judge. That's right. I didn't judge. That's what I said.
So did we go through any indoor sample packs, or why was the outdoor
I
deal?
went through a light assist and an outdoor.
Okay.
That's what I didn't go through it. I seen it, right? I opened them up because the pack was there, and started looking at it because I knew the conflict. It's sad. I agree with everybody. Like this isn't a good thing. The good thing that can come. There's a lot of good things. Go ahead, Brandon. How you want to talk?
I know, but I think the issue is that.
Did you make that clown thing? Was that you behind that? Tell me with integrity you did it or didn't. That's all I want to know.
What cloud?
That clown page.
Oh yeah, that was
Clown.
Oh
I saw
that
but
meme page ain't
definitely
me.
ain't anybody I know.
Yeah.
That meme page ain't me. But I
Whoever
thought it was
that
fun.
is, I want this next time you guys see him, put him in front of me. That's all I ask. I love dialogue and conversation, and I want to get to the root of this. And I feel horrible right alongside of you guys, man.
But this is the issue, right? So if all these different farms are using different labs and submitting samples, different farms, you guys are saying that both the farms are across the board. It's your professional opinion, and that you guys have the ability to identify specific contaminants that visually that have to be detected with scientific instrumentation. That's what I'm getting at, because that don't make sense to me.
Have you ever seen bud rot with your eye?
Of course I have.
Of course.
I've seen it with mine on samples submitted. Okay, seen it with my eye on samples submitted.
Every single light depth, every greenhouse, and
I'm telling you what
every single sample. I'm just saying it doesn't make sense logistically.
Sample. I'm not saying that. I didn't say that. I was telling you what I've seen. And I've been trying to get the cup to send me. I got the pictures. The pictures have numbers to them. I need to match up the pictures to the farmers. And I think this is a private conversation I don't think the pictures should be out in public. I think the pictures is fucking hurtful. This whole thing is. It should be a direct conversation with each individual farmer and kind of show and go through that whole protocol.
Too late. When your organization went up on stage
so you
and
want
publicly humiliated
everybody.
everybody.
You want us just to throw them up there for everybody to see? Is that what you want?
No, I'm saying that what the organization did was
not going to like.
right.
I'm telling you.
It just wasn't right, man. The damage
It
is
wasn't
already
right.
done. You guys trying to save face isn't going to help the farmers.
Nobody's trying to save face here. We're having a dialogue and trying to get through this. There was present mold. There was present contaminants. There was present rot on the samples that I've seen. Okay, I'm not the judge, but I've seen the samples. I've seen the pictures. And so what I'm telling you, that is an
conclusion.
Are you telling me that that's consumable? You're bringing a craft to a competition, and I'm hearing you argue with me and saying that's a consumable product and okay to smoke bud rot? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying that the whole thing was handled wrong, and that you guys hung a bunch of people going on stage. You guys decided to just go up there and say, hey, this is what's going on. And it's like, you guys didn't even bring any proof. No one has even seen any proof yet. That's the whole thing.
I'm with you on that. I'm 100% on your team on all of what you just said, and to see the proof, to have the numbers match with the farmers. And I'm sure there's other sample boxes out there. That's the other thing. Let's go through the rest.
But it also could have been handling procedures too, Patrick, right? And so, but
totally.
that wasn't said. That wasn't clarified. It was an immediate attack right there on the farmers. Instead of saying, hey, we had an issue. So,
I didn't hand in a sample that had mold on it. I mean, how many people would actually turn a sample in and pay $350 for entries?
This is the problem I see with the regulation on testing in Oklahoma. And there's a lot of it. And this goes not just to this. This isn't just to this, but it's this is a safety for all the best craft growers out there. Is when you can have I'm not saying anybody on the level your craft was fucking great, because the product we came in, I'd seen the product too. It was fucking flawless. It was impeccable. It was awesome. But what the state of Oklahoma has wrong in testing is they allow cultivators and farmers to submit their own samples. Okay, that's one situation that is messed up. Okay, and the reason why is because a cultivator can grab any craft, any product, and submit 1 pound. Say he has a batch of 50, he can go back and use that analytics on a contaminated whole batch and get that same analytics and THC percentages and pass-fail testing stickers to put on it. The control to the farmer isn't a good idea. It doesn't work. We call it the high times method, where somebody can actually take a product. They can actually go to a dispensary and buy great Brandon Rust product off the shelf, pull it in, say it's their batch, submit it to the laboratory, and the laboratory will give them results for that. They can take that result back and say their batch was 50 pounds and rip off your craft. And that's not leveling up this industry. That's taking advantage of the craft farmers who are doing it right. Number one, that's the biggest problem with testing in Oklahoma that I see. And having, which I don't have anymore, my processing license with pasteurization over there, I don't have anymore, but I seen it firsthand. Cultivators bring me 1 pound and say, will you remediate this? Then they take it right across the street to the lab, and the lab tests it, and then they say it's a 50-pound batch, and they go back to all their weed that failed on that 1 pound, and then they throw stickers and say it, and they're putting this out in the name of medicine to people with immune disorder deficiencies who could fucking die from this shit. I get sick. We need to change that. Change one.
We're not trying to attack the labs, because what you're trying to do is just discredit the labs all across Oklahoma to try to give more credence to what happened.
I'm not trying to. That is not my message.
Sounds like to us, dude. That's what it sounds like to the community.
I'm sorry it sounds like that. Let me clarify it a little bit better. As an industry, we are responsible to provide clean medicine if it's considered medicine. We go, if I want a Dr. Pepper, I'm going to go buy it. I know it's bad for me. I want a pack of cigarettes. I know it's going to be bad for me. If it's a bunch of pesticides on weed, and and I'm a cultivator, and I'm able to go to a dispensary and buy an ounce from the shelf of that and say if Brandon's weed, and I can say it's that, and nothing is tested that goes in that batch on a shelf, that's fucking sacrilegious, and that needs to change in the name of the patients of fucking cannabis. Right? That needs to change. I'm not calling anybody out.
Why wasn't that what was said on stage?
No, Brandon.
Exactly right. I'm raising my hand and saying I didn't agree with the way it was handled. I apologize. As a farmer myself, I would be disgusted like you. I feel the fucking burden and I feel the pain. I don't want these pictures to go out in public at all. It's not, if none of you guys watching even need to see it. This is conversations between Brandon, between his investors, and to get us all around this thing.
What are you talking about? I don't have any investors, bro. This has nothing to do with me. I don't have some. I'm just using my platform as a voice. That's it, dude.
Do you consult for someone?
Do I consult for someone?
Are they paying you? Are they paying you? Oh, no. These are all your own farms?
Nobody is paying me anything to do this at all. No, not at all.
What I'm saying is there's in farms, not just you. Everything's not about you, okay? Farms that were there, that's a conversation between them, their partners, whoever they want on the team. This is I think it's a private conversation. The last thing I ever want to see is these pictures going out to the public and it becoming ransacked. Like this was definitely wrong, right? Well, everything how it went down. But the principle behind it, in the name of fucking medicine, this needs to change in Oklahoma, and we need to do better. I'm not saying cultivators. I'm saying the whole process in general needs to do better, right? It needs to do better.
Patrick, I'm curious, because you're talking about medicine and also with the smoking and the immunocompromisation. Yeah. And how that's very important. Is it your opinion that smoking, the act of inhaling smoke into your lungs, is a harmless act, or is one that doesn't also carry with it issues for the immunocompromised, depending on how they are
Oh,
immunocompromised?
absolutely. But if I'm buying a eighth off the shelf in a dispensary, and I know I'm smoking it, and it's labeled clean medicine, and it's lied to, and it might have some microbials or some pesticides or other contaminants in it, I have a problem with that, and that immune disease efficiency is going to be even worse on the patient, 100%. But yes, smoke inhalation is bad, absolutely. It's no denying that. We can learn from this, and we can get better, including us. Like I feel the fucking hurt as a cultivator. Man, it didn't go down right. It should have, but the whole thing didn't. It should have been handled a little bit better. Absolutely. Way better, actually. It sucks.
Brandon, I would
Fucking
love
sucks. I feel. So wait, what's our solutions out of this? Go ahead.
Do you know what molds were? Oh, sorry, she's going. Sorry.
I would like to hear from some of the other farmers on the actual event. So the topic at hand, I would like to hear more about that, please.
Is that a question for me? I didn't understand if it was.
For you, it's a question for Brandon to bring on other farmers who have been hurt by this event today.
Sure.
Yeah.
Someone's gonna have to tap out because I have to.
I don't mind tapping out. I'll tap out.
Okay.
Do I tap out or you tap me out? How does that work? I don't know how to do this. I've never tapped in, tapped out.
I think you have to do it yourself.
Fuck. All right, here we go, guys.
Is my
And then
internet?
then we can bring in Nelson afterwards. That Nelson's a real smart guy, and he'll have some good input on the whole situation too.
We can hear you. Actually, your connection is okay.
Was it better before?
It's good now. And when you reconnected, it was a little bit garbled, but you're okay.
Okay, thanks.
There we go.
Yo.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
So you were one of the entries as well, right? You guys had a farm. You guys put in some product.
Did, yes, sir. And so, yeah, one of the things Daniel told me is that he had the product stored at his house, and that whenever the samples failed, he had to go back to his house to get other samples to go back so they could put them under the scope. So I just wonder what the conditions were and what the chain of custody was.
Yeah, and that's a good thing too. And I don't think that part was ever addressed before they had, decided to kind of go on stage and then disqualify everybody and kind of put everybody in a public predicament, that had entries in there or that had, again, it affects business. It affects your clientele. It affects your brand, and it really affects the market. I strongly believe, and somebody who tries to help out as much as they can with the farmers and stuff.
Right. And, they set limits on mold and for testing and whatever else for a reason. So if they see spores, that doesn't necessarily mean that it was beyond 1/10,000th of a gram or whatever the limit is, So I think to say that, to go up on stage and say it could cause someone to die is pretty crazy.
Yeah, and for me, I was just curious, and I still am, and I guess I kind of wish Patrick was here. Maybe he'll say in the chat if he's watching. But I'm still at a loss. I think we all are. Like, what exactly are these things? Like, it's not magic. It's not spontaneous generation. Flies don't just emanate out of the ether on meat. Something it has to get there and then develop on it, and then you can identify that. And I'm just curious how that was done. And what they know enough about what they're looking at to even make such a claim that it would be poisonous, that those particular things. Now, if it's molded all over, of course, you don't really want to be using that. I'm not advocating for this. But like another person had said earlier, it's surprising to me that somebody would, like they said, spend a bunch of money and political and other kinds of capital, social capital, the trust of everyone they're talking to, and, really send something that was, in the words of my grandfather, bewegan. Not good. I just feel like that's sort of surprising. And yeah, like you say with the chain of custody, that's another way that you can have things develop. you know, if it was improperly stored.
If we were talking about 3 out of 20, it'd be one thing, but 17 out of 20 is another story.
Yeah, that's why you have control as an experiment, right? Because maybe you did something to all of them, and now you know that that might have been a variable you should have controlled for or something, whatever's going on. So yeah,
Right.
it almost makes me feel like, yeah, maybe they were fine, and then, you know, some sort of mass event happened to them, but who knows? Certainly I don't.
Well, I guess we never will.
I'd like to let Nelson in here if that's okay. If I could get someone to switch out for a little bit. Right. We'll let Nelson in. He can get his 2 cents in. Always like listening to his input because he usually has something comprehensive to say.
Another
It'll
thing about
probably be more than 2 cents.
my samples were sent out to the lab 2 days before my entry went into the competition, and my samples were passed the day that they were given to the competition. It just seems, and I also have of the sample or of the entry.
Like if it was powdery mildew doesn't grow on dead tissue. Ask any pathologist, any agricultural pathologist. That's not how it works. Botrytis could maybe. Some other necrotroph. There's tons of them out there. So again, you know, and what was it? Was it a mold spore that you're just going to inhale out in the atmosphere?
Well,
You know, was it even a prime pathogen? You know,
another thing Daniel mentioned is that it wasn't on the bud itself; it was on the base of the stem.
oh,
And so, that if it was right where the water's leaking out of the base of the stem where it's cut, maybe it could be a possibility, but for it to be on all 17 samples, it just seems unlikely.
All right. Sorry. I'm like, I don't know what happened, but I can't go live anymore after that Catalyst Elliott live. I've got, so I don't know. But okay, so can you guys hear me okay?
you can be heard.
First of all, sir, you have an incredible mustache. I just need to bring a little levity, to all this. I'm jealous. I think we should do a Creedence Clearwater cover band. I don't know if you play any instruments.
All about it. Let's do it.
But we could fucking rip it up, all right? I'll clean this up, There we go. All right, so this is what I know of the situation. There was a contest called the Cowboy Cup. The majority of the samples were disqualified, and then there's some dialogue around how the samples were disqualified that wasn't handled properly. That's the overall, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And that the chain of custody the samples went to someone's house. Were the samples in a jar? How were the samples prepared?
We don't know.
So there was no standards. There was no quality standards for how they took in the samples and then how they submitted them into the competition. Is that correct?
As far as we know, but we haven't gotten any answers back on that either.
Okay. And then the people that weren't disqualified, some of them had a conflict of interest?
Yes.
Okay. So this just sounds like par for the course for every single cannabis competition we've ever had. And I think it's highlighting a general issue with all of these competitions. And I think that we need to bring these competitions into a different space. And in general, I think most of these festivals have become a way of fleecing the last bit of money. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I think it's become a way of fleecing and extracting value out of the remaining farmers that are still in this industry and these emerging markets and the consumers. And I think in general, we need to reset how all these are going. I mean, Patrick's been in this business for a long time in California, and he's had an interesting track record in this industry. And, at this point, I think we need to rethink how we're doing all of this and stop bringing the people from the prior guard into these newer competitions and newer formats and newer events. I think that they had an opportunity to do something good, and they didn't do anything really that had any life or any long-term value. That's my 2 cents. And I'm not speaking specifically. I don't know anything about Patrick as a person or anything like that. I don't know the person. I'm not trying to say anything about that. I'm just saying that the prior guard in the cannabis space did not create anything of longevity around these events. And I think it's time to rethink all of it. And, we're having that conversation on my Discord server right now. There are pheno tastings that are happening in little speakeasies in Northern California where there's been like a co-opt or collaborative approach to pheno hunting and selecting what people's work is doing. It's getting it out of the competition space. I think the competition space in general was used as a way for growers to raise capital early when Prop 64 happened. I think prior to that, it used to just be kind of a celebration of the community, and we've lost that. And I think what's been exported from California is this competitive approach that's helped people raise money. But if you look at the people that have won these competitions, they might have raised money for a minute, and now they're closing their farms. So I think in general, all of the weird little things that are going are just an example of everything that's been happening in this industry for a really long time. My advice is to stop participating in these events if there isn't clear standards or clear understanding. Do not give them any more money, right? And then to start setting up standards for us to start doing it in small local community levels and building a platform around that. And that's kind of where I'm at with all this, because what we're going to do is you're going to put a lot of time and energy into repairing whatever's behind the Cowboy Cup. But to me, it looks like a lot of people from California, when I'm looking at it, there's a lot of California influence on that, where it's been exported to Oklahoma. I don't know if that's a good thing, you know. I don't this weird migration of old guard cannabis people from other states going and then repeating some of these things in newer states when they haven't really been organized to execute in the past. I don't know. I just think.
And it doesn't make sense. It's like, you know, how are you going to go up on stage, tell everybody in Oklahoma that that they can't grow greenhouse or weed, they don't know when to harvest right, and that they're potentially putting dangerous product on the market, and then knowing full well that you plan on coming out here to do sun grown when the recreational market opens up. It's like. And it's I don't know,
Well,
dude.
listen, I think also we have to look at, I don't know if there's like some fuckery that went on with that or if it was just sloppiness. Sometimes sloppiness can look like fuckery, and sometimes fuckery can look like sloppiness. So unless you have like unless you do a thorough enough investigation, right, which is going to take a lot of time and energy, and you've got a lot of people in here. My first question, is it worth the investigation? I think the one thing that's worth is they should refund all of the people that submitted samples that probably weren't handled properly, right? Second, who is judging it, and are these people that are judging it qualified to be able to identify mold? Do we know that?
Well, that's what it was. It was the Gangier group. That's who went up on stage. Was Wendy Sonabis went up on stage. They shut down the whole ceremony. Basically said, "Hey, you guys don't know how to grow sun grown. You guys don't know how to go greenhouse. Everything was contaminated. It's okay, though. Come see us. We'll talk about the services that we can provide for you guys in the state of Oklahoma."
Is that really what happened?
That's
Dude,
really
it's
what they said.
exactly what happened.
Okay, so
100.
so they used it as a pitch for their services?
Yeah, dude, it was a really
Okay.
bad
Okay.
advertisement for the Gangier services.
Everyone that was a part of that service should now be boycotted.
Word.
All right?
Right?
Like everyone that went up there and used this opportunity where people put their hard-earned money into a competition to be a part of some collaborative community thing and then turn that into a pitch, all of them are out. That's it. So whoever they are, stop buying their products, stop supporting them. This is the problem with the industry. And people talk about culture, but meanwhile we have these people from the culture that are doing the same thing that the private equity groups and the Chads are doing. All right, so how about this? Fuck off. We're not gonna play with that. And if those people are engaging, and I see the same clown show of characters, you know, that are wearing their fucking weird clothes and have their fucking weird face paint and have their whole little cannabis image, right? It's a joke. It's not real. It's a joke. So
Yeah.
let's move on, right? We have people in this community that are talking about real things about the plant, that are focused on growing good cannabis. Let's start elevating them. All the attention that's going into this is now elevating them even more, maybe in a negative way. Delete them. You know how you have a bad pheno in your garden, right? You delete it, right? Delete all these people. just like, okay, let's say that this event was a waste of fucking time. Now let's think about how we create an event that's not a waste of time. We could spend all the time trying to repair what happened here. Instead of that, let's create a new event. You know, let's create something that's opposite from that.
That's like immediately where our minds went to in our chat. We're like, we should just create a growers cup where the growers are the people who submit and they're the ones who have to judge. They all have to go in there and their own peers and sit around a table and knock their heads around until they figure out who won.
It's pretty easy to do that. It's pretty easy to do a chain of custody. It's a pretty easy to do testing and sampling when the product comes, right? So what you do is you have your sample, however much it is, that gets tested. It gets inspected by somebody. That gets videoed, right? So you have evidence of that person inspecting it. This is all fucking shit you can do with your phone, right? Then those samples are brought in for testing. If they don't pass testing, they're disqualified, right? And then from that point on, everything that comes through goes through a chain of custody where it's documented and that's held that way, right? And it doesn't have to take that long. I mean, we're talking about 2 weeks. How long does it take to get a COA back? A couple of days?
A week
4 to
here.
7 days.
Yeah, and then you could partner with a lab where you say, we're going to promote your lab if you can donate these testing results to this. And we have a lab partner on that you pre-qualify based off of their track record in the history, maybe a smaller or mid-sized business that hasn't been bought out by some influence.
Well, that's kind of what they did 3 years ago, you know, or 2 years ago. The Cowboy Cup actually partnered with Express Toxicology, who ultimately themselves ended up going out of business. But everybody had to bring COAs, and then Express, who was the main sponsor that year, retested everybody's entries.
Okay. So let's look at it. Let's look at it. How do you eat an elephant, right? One bite at a time. So someone funded this Cowboy Cup. It was a big event. I'm assuming there was probably thousands of people that showed up, or hundreds of people. It was a bigger event.
Thousands. It's a big event. It's probably one of the biggest. It's the biggest cup event in Oklahoma.
Okay, great. Start boycotting that event. All right, and then start setting up smaller events within your local community. And then you take those are all little nodes, right? And then you could have like a grand event at the end of the year or something like that. But basically you create smaller events that you can afford to put on, and you start creating a conversation within those events, and you make those cool. No one gives a fuck about Emerald Cup anymore. The people that are talking to me about doing rad shit, they're going to these small events where they rent out a restaurant and they do pheno tasting, and then they grade those phenos, and then that cut becomes the fucking hype for the next year, right? And that's better than fucking winning an award. What's the best thing is like if you have a cut that everyone wants the fucking flower from, and you can sell your actual product now, right? So that's a better reward than whatever bullshit fucking trophy you get that no one really cares about. So let's bring it back to what's valuable and elevate that, and then create a community around these things and break away from this nonsense, right? Because it's all just a way of fleecing people from my perspective, because it's gotten too big. The industry is too volatile. There's too many people that are failing, and there's too many people that are like, this is my last moment to fucking get my money, so let me just stick my hand a little bit deeper in everyone that's suffering right now, right? And then the response is this volatile amount of fucking negative energy and hatred, which is energy that could be used to creating something fucking better that could actually rebuild or reinvigorate a new culture, while this one is dying and going out the fucking window. The old cannabis culture is fucking dead, all right? So we have to reinvent it with these events, which is what brings the community together. So that's my challenge to all of this. Stop wasting your time on this bullshit. Try and get your fucking money back. And let's have a creative conversation about how we can create something new. Because all of this is a giant fucking waste of time. Fuck all these people. Fuck this old guard. Fuck Swami whatever with his fucking beard and everything else. And let's start elevating it and attracting the young growers in that are 20, that are looking at this nonsense and seeing a bunch of old people fucking going, what is this? I don't want to do this. You know what I'm saying? It's our job to fucking keep this shit going in the right way. And that's not what's happening anymore.
Yeah, I agree with a bunch of that. I'm just a gardener. I don't have a whole lot of time to be setting up, big weed conventions and things like that. I mean, I assume that everybody here has spent time in the garden.
That's not what I'm saying. No, me too. But that's not what I'm not saying to set up big conventions. Like, there's a little fucking Peruvian restaurant in Santa Rosa, and like they set up a pheno tasting night, and like 70 people show up. They provide like $100, all the weed you want to smoke, and then a fucking 5-course meal, right? You can set that up every 3 months, right?
We don't have that in Oklahoma. We don't have that pleasure to be able to just set up at a
You
Peruvian
don't have a
restaurant.
ranch. You don't have a
We
ranch where
can, yeah,
you
we
can have a
can. We can
barbecue.
set something up. We can definitely
You
set
don't have a
something
ranch.
up, dude.
You don't need a restaurant.
We're already starting to talk about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
There's plenty of
it's
places. Farmers market. There's plenty of people's farms. We can do it, dude. We can do our
and
own thing and not.
it's not putting the onerous of all this on you individually. It's about like once a month you have a meeting with like a collective of people that all have their interests aligned, and then people decide on who has the time to focus on this, right? This is how you organize, right? Like what
Yeah.
we're doing right now is we're having that fucking meeting on our phones. You
Yep.
could do that meeting on your fucking phones with the local farmers there, and then you find a spot where someone's like, we're all going to chip in $100 for the barbecue, and then people show up and you have a cap, and then you do that rating on whatever you want to do. You set up the standards, but you just begin that conversation, because if you don't do keeps calling me. If you don't do the work, then these people are going to do it, because guess what? They're not in the garden. They're not growing anymore. They're out there trying to sell everything and get their hand in the pocket and everything else. And this is the whole thing, because they're not growing anymore. Their farms failed in California. It's why they're in Oklahoma trying to fleece people. So unless it's the farmers and the growers actually, spending a little bit of time, like 2% of your time a month, to start having that conversation, you're not going to get an event that you want to be a part of. All right, you're going to get like this weird corporate face that ends up becoming this transitory move, like what High Times became, Emerald Cup became, for all these corporate interests to come in and fucking identify value and then take advantage of it. That's the pattern.
Right on.
So,
Yeah,
We got a lot of support coming through for this. So,
but I'm not even reading the comments. But the point of it is that it goes away if you don't put energy into it. If you don't fill in the space a little bit, and collectively we can, the people that aren't in the garden are going to take it. And you are going to end up where we're at in California, where we're fucking hanging on by we're like at the bottom here, and all the good people are leaving the industry because they're tired of it. We have to create a home for the good people. Otherwise, we're just left with the fucking has-been con artists. That's the point I'm making. So start it. I'm on the I've got this Supercuts Discord. I turned it into an basically the Supercuts Discord. I saw the price of the cookie seeds and I'm like, fuck, this is outrageous. No one's paying $40 for a seed. This hurts right now. What's the thing I could do? So I took my Sips and Seeds channel that I'd sell my shit, turned it into an open source marketplace. Out of that, now we're having a collaborative discussion where we're talking about how to do some of these things. And people on the Discord are adding great ideas. I throw a challenge up. This is what I want to create. What do you guys think? And within 30 minutes, we have a loose structure that we can build on. In like 2 days, we've got something we can act on. And it's like the same thing as the time I'm spending on Instagram. Fuck this app. Fuck all this shit. This is a waste of time. There's too much noise. There's too many things that we can do to take the good people with good ideas and start creating things. Otherwise, it's game over. That's my perspective.
Sure. Hey, well, I appreciate everybody who came out to this live so we could all discuss this. I'm going to share it onto my feed so everybody can look at it and watch it back. So I appreciate everybody being here, and shout out to all the farmers in Oklahoma and everywhere else in the country.
You got it. And Brandon, join the Discord.
I'll join.
All right.